Om Namah Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wisdom Wednesdays. Sorry, I'm managing two Zooms right now because we've switched Zoom subscriptions, so our links are now different. Yes, so I was just telling Graham that we're in a different Zoom, so I'm glad to see Graham made it. Um, Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. If you are in a time, place, or circumstance that allows, we would love to see everybody's beautiful faces. It just makes the session just that much more interactive. And we will go ahead and start with an icebreaker question just to get the creative juices and our brains working a little bit so that way we are awake for this talk. So the question is, what's a daily habit or task that brings you a sense of inner peace or happiness? So, more generally speaking, what makes you happy?
I can start.
Mhm.
Um, this might not be the healthiest habit, but I love to have something sweet after a meal, and it makes me really happy. Even if it's just like one bite of chocolate. Um, I do like to meditate in the morning, so that's if we're going for more inner peace or happiness, I really like that. But yeah.
Definitely something sweet. I think there's scientific reasons for why that happens. I'm not exactly sure of them, but that's a great example. Graham said doing Tai Chi on a regular basis. Yes, one of Graham's hobbies. So glad to hear.
I'll go. I would say going for a morning walk every day in the sun and listening to something meditative or motivating and just feeling the sun on my face and getting going for the day.
Definitely. How about painting? I see that you're painting.
Yeah, yeah, I'm finally getting to it. It's running a little late, but yeah.
Yes, definitely. That's such a great experience and way to connect with our happiness.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be doing it.
Thank you for sharing.
hmm
I'll go.
Mhm.
I really like quiet time at the end of the day where it's just me and my fluffy orange cat on the couch. Call it I call it Mama and Me time for Cody. And it's just really nice and soothing.
Yes, what's your cat's name?
Cody.
Cody. Okay, got it. It's amazing. Yes. Our furry friends definitely make us happy. I was dropping off mail at USPS the other day and like there was just this cute dog sticking his head out the window next to the car I had parked. And I was smiling the whole time. I'm generally not like a very animal-like person, but even just seeing like a cute husky like just brought a smile to my face. For myself, a daily habit that brings me a sense of inner peace and happiness. Honestly, breakfast. I think breakfast is one of the best meals of the day. I love breakfast foods.
Yeah, I can go now.
Yeah,
All right, for me, is take a break and have this most amazing fresh cup of coffee.
fresh cup of coffee. Yes.
Yes, like the espresso or French press. The one that has the foam on top is very amazing.
Yes. I've never been much of a coffee person, but I'll relate with hot chocolate. When it's cold outside and I want a cup of hot
There we
chocolate,
go. Yeah. For
I
me,
totally get
I do everything that I can to have a break and have my cup of coffee.
it. Definitely. And you're in upstate New York, I think, so it's definitely cold
Yep,
up there quite often. So
yep, yep. Coffee from Brazil is the best. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing, everybody. And with that, I'll hand over the speaker baton to Savya. Savya is joining us at what I think is 3 or 4 a.m. for him over in South Africa. So if you're still in South Africa, I know you travel a lot, but we're so grateful that you have again come back to join us and share your wisdom with our community. We are very grateful.
Yes, it'll be good morning for me and good evening to most of you. I am in South Africa, actually in Johannesburg. So happy to see some familiar faces and thank you for having me. So I have an exciting topic about how to invest in ourselves in different aspects of our lives. And we're looking at beginning with the end in mind. It's just the start of the year. And so lots of resolutions probably have been made by most of us. And the story is generally the same, but we want to change the narrative of resolutions being made and then broken. Also just encourage one another that it's generally not a sprint to transformation, but it's a gradual process where we have to be kind to ourselves and to constantly try to improve. So I'll just begin with one mantra just to bring some auspiciousness into the room. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So yes, thank you. There's a beautiful verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Show of hands, who's familiar with Bhagavad Gita? Heard of it, seen it, maybe even read it. All right. Okay, I see you. So in that Bhagavad Gita, the speaker is Krishna, and he's giving some advice to Arjuna. They're having a dialogue. And within that book, so many wonderful instructions. I think from today's talk, I picked out some nice recommendations from a particular verse in the 5th chapter and the 17th verse. So beginning with the end in mind, it said wise men and women, they keep death as a meditation, or keep death at the forefront of their consciousness. So when we say end, in spiritual circles, we understand, of course, that there is no beginning and end for the life force, the spiritual being, you and I. We are anti-material and therefore not affected by death. However, we understand that the body that we live in must come to an end. We are never really sure when it will happen. It is said in 7 days, everyone will die. So, Monday through Sunday, one of those days will be our day. We don't know when. And so as sure as death, the statement you hear that, I guess sometimes they say as sure as death and taxes, but people sometimes can evade tax, and if somehow they are fortunate, they don't get caught. But death, nobody can escape. At least the body must meet its end. So then one has to consider that now I have this body and I have a life connected to this body. And when this body ends, what will happen to me? What will be my next destination? So that makes spiritual cultivation an important duty that we have, that we owe ourselves, right? If you want to visit Mauritius, then definitely you make some research. What's going on in Mauritius? Where's the best hotels? Which beaches to visit? What flights to get? And you make all these arrangements to reach Mauritius so you could have that holiday that you want. So we are always destination conscious. If we're going somewhere on the freeway, you call it freeway or highway, freeway. If there's an exit that you have to take, you have to keep your eyes peeled for that exit. Otherwise, you miss it and you lose time and whatever. So this exit from the body is inevitable for all. And there must be a destination in mind when I lose this body that I love so much. So the first investment that one must make is investing in knowledge. Jnana ni duta kalma saha. Jnana means knowledge. Duta means wash, and nirduta means completely. And kalma saha means there's like a fog in our awareness, a forgetfulness of this inevitable reality. And so when we get spiritual knowledge, it actually washes away this neglect, you could say ignorance, or just complacency about making a concerted effort to be destination conscious. So, hint, hint, check out Bhagavad Gita as it is. You'll find so much potent information that, like a friend, always has our well wishes in mind, can remind us daily to keep the end in mind and to grow in that knowledge. Because what happens is that we do invest in knowledge for our regular activities in life, like our jobs. We're constantly trying to improve ourselves, keep up with the latest in our particular industries and stuff. But then that type of knowledge is only impacting our material situation. It can give us better opportunities or better facilities. But that, for a spiritualist, is not enough. We are more ambitious. We want richer, deeper happiness. And with the icebreaker, we were finding out things that we do, to find happiness on a daily basis. So with that knowledge in mind of our spiritual identity, then we start to add in activities that can hit the soul, the self, and give that type of quality happiness. So with spirituality and knowledge about the soul and the reality beyond the material world, we get a richer and a deeper type of happiness, which is not dependent on temporary arrangements of this world, which come and go. So that will be one, investing in knowledge, jnana, because that will wash away our misconceptions and it will keep us focused on the highest attainments, which is connecting to the Supreme. Number two, it is mentioned Tat Buddhaya. So Buddhi means intelligence. So we require intelligence to get by, right? There's people take IQ tests to see how intelligent they are. And so material intelligence also has its limitations. There's even the most intelligent persons, they also find themselves falling victim to some pushings within the system. Something like lust, something like greed or envy. So these seem to beat out even the most intelligent men and women of this world. So how do we deal with the subtle susceptibilities that we have, the subtle pushings that seem to override what we may know? We take, for example, a packet of cigarettes. In most countries, they'll write some message there. And I know in Australia, they've got like very scary graphics of lungs falling apart, whatever it may be, just to deter people. So, people go into the shop, they pop out their money, they buy the thing, they can see all that, and it's written in bold, smoking does this and does that. And they crack the seal open and they smoke away. So seeing, they're able to read, and they've heard many times about the dangers of that. And they're coming out of an office, they may be, CEO, managers, and big shot people. So there you can see that the intelligence of comprehension doesn't actually translate to them acting according to what they may understand or compute. So that means there's something that is overridden that natural intelligence. So we want to invest in intelligence, which is known as transcendental intelligence. Means from the knowledge in the spiritual texts, that knowledge is being given from a platform free of the difficulties of material conditioning. So it can give us insight on a life free from control from our lower nature. So it can help us to discern the fleeting nature of just sensuality for the sake of sensuality. And it can put us onto using our senses for spiritual experience, because the senses have their use. We can see, we can taste and hear and touch, but we can do these things in connection to a higher reality. But when we don't have that insight, we have been tapped into the intelligence of the spiritual platform, we simply engage ourselves in the mundane, everyday sensual experiences, and they bind us. They create habits that are like, in the beginning, so innocent. A little tree is growing and everyone's watering it, the kids are playing with it. You come 5 years ago, oh, it's a little bigger now. 10 years later, it's a whole big thing. And you can't uproot it now. When it was little, it looked innocent. So habits, they form like that innocently. Man, later on, it's a monster that is haunting us. So when we focus on the Supreme, when we focus our intelligence on growing a deeper connection spiritually, that helps us to free ourselves from such habits that may just take us off course in many aspects of our lives. Also, that intelligence gives us philosophical understanding. See, we can be sentimental many times in this world. We want to be politically correct, you could say. Don't say things that will hurt people's feelings. We should spare them the truth. Some truths, yes, are not so palatable to hear. But in the long run, when one understands the grim reality of existence in this world, they can act differently. You might have heard the little anecdote about the boy who was raised by his stepmother. And the stepmother, because she had lost her husband, the boy's father, was so lenient and loving and just sweet and wanted the best for the boy. And he let him run in the streets and be happy. Don't control him, let him express himself. He's young, he should enjoy. So he did that, and he had so many crazy friends in his life. He started doing so many wild things. It led to crime, and then he was arrested. And heavy crime, he had to be hung. So this is like some story from back then, when people were still getting hung. And when he was about to be hung in the city square, any last words, anything you want to say? Yes, please, I'd like to say something to my aunt. The aunt is hysterical, crying. They called her, oh, my son, this is so bad. And he said, come close, I want to tell you something. So she came in, and next thing, he bit her ear off. And she was screaming, outraged, shocked. What's going on? He said, when I was wrecking my life, you were not there for me. You didn't tell me the truth, and you didn't stop me as I was walking the wrong path. Look at me now. I'm about to lose my life. And she thought she was being sweet and kind and accommodating. But had she told the boy, in strong ways, love can also be a little strong and assertive, could have protected him from this fate. So this is to say, when we are getting knowledge from scriptures, spiritual texts, it can sound a little hard or heavy or uncompromising. But because we are like children spiritually, we just want to follow our senses and have a good old time. We forget that we're playing in a dangerous playground. So the scriptures are like parents, which give us that intelligence and help us to focus. So that investment of associating with transcendental intelligence given by this scriptures is important. Third type of investment is, in that text it says tat atmanas. Atmanas in this case refers to the mind, and the mind means thinking, feeling, and willing. But out of these faculties of thought and feelings and willpower, we are affected most by our feelings. Yes, even in our speech, we there's a lot of I feel this, I feel that, you know, more you hear a few people, I think this, I think that, but it's basically feelings one way. Because we are affected by our feelings, we tend to trust our feelings more than maybe even logic or conventional wisdom. And therefore, we move in life based on what feels good. It's a natural survival instinct that we want to remove things that are creating sort of pain and distress, and we want things that bring some sort of pleasure and immediate sort of comfort. So in this mind, Tat Atmanas means investing in our emotions. The mind needs to be fixed in, you could say, healthy emotional involvement. In spiritual life, sometimes we have to do things that we may not feel like doing in the moment. Like we wake up early. I mean, how many of us here like our sleep? By show of hands. You know, sleep is nice. It's just you kind of forget the rest of whatever your life's about, and you probably have your favorite blanket or whatever it may be, comforter. Yeah. But we all have to get up, even just to go to school, to go to work, and it's generally not a nice experience. You probably you're all in winter right now, so yeah, it must be more meaningful. Of course, central heating helps. So to get up and to invest in your practices, whether you do affirmations, some yoga, breathing, some mantra meditation, whatever it is that you do for your well-being, you may not feel like doing it all the time, but because you understand how you feel after you've done these activities, then you may do it. So you don't do it because you feel good at the time, but by knowledge of what it brings to you, then you do it. So sometimes you have to do the activity and the emotional kickback comes in later. The happiness will come after the act. So if we're depending on just it feels good before we do it, there's many things we wouldn't do. It feels good to get paid, but may not feel good to go to work all the time and do the work. So when it comes to spiritual growth, there are many levels of attainment on the spiritual path. Some attainments are just feeling a relief from the anxieties of daily life. Some attainments may be to find connection to the super soul or the indwelling guide. Some attainments may be that we become mystically endowed. And according to Krishna's teachings, the highest attainment is a loving relationship with the Supreme Person. So love is said to be the highest emotion. And love is fully experienced in relationship with other persons. So we have some experience of that in our lives. But then if we may think of the most ideal person, if we were to have that power to make the best individual who has all the things on our checklist. No red flags, only green. So that individual would be the supreme person, the best of everyone, all attractive, all knowing, all loving, all funny. Whatever qualities that we like are found in the supreme being, the source of all beings. So connecting with that supreme person then would afford us a loving relationship that our minds now can't even comprehend. We're fortunate, especially if we've had a glimpse of so-called love, generally that first relationship where we've been watching all the rom-coms and we've heard the stories of princes and princesses, and then we meet somebody, we generally give all that we've got, our heart is fully open, and we bring really the best of us to that. And all our emotions are raw, and we really give it a go. And it really tends to sit in the heart, even for a whole life, that first love. If you can try to think of that absorption, that just natural, even sometimes people are ready to give up their parents if they're like standing in the way of that. There's so much risk that we are willing to take to be with that beloved. So try to imagine that, multiply it infinitely. That your life is just an absorption in this amazing relationship, this amazing love, which is ever fresh, ever inspiring, and it's self-giving. You just want to practically merge yourself in the interests of the other. Yeah. So in terms of emotional experience, these are the prospects on the spiritual platform. This deep connection where we are fully seen and where we get full reciprocation even beyond our expectation. So this is one area which in modern society we are being robbed, because they've canceled that relationship with the Supreme. It's ridiculed, it's sidelined, and so we never get the chance to aspire for it, which is unfortunate. Yet our heart beats for love, it beats for connection. And we are disappointed on Tinder and wherever else we may be looking for these connections. And so we become sort of hard-hearted, just disappointed people who are ready to lash out because of a litany of relationships that didn't go well. So spirituality offers this. And Krishna in the Gita, he's saying that one who sees me in everything, who sees everything in me, I'm never lost to them, they're never lost to me. So there's a consciousness that can evolve, just as we see in our love affairs here, where everything reminds us of that person. Everything we see how they would like it, how they wouldn't like it. So the heart wants this. So this is one investment. And how do we get the mind to allow that flow of emotion? Then the mind requires to be cleansed, purified of all its misgivings. And this is the process of mantra meditation, sound has been said to be most efficacious in clearing the blocks in the heart, the disappointments that we've had on the mature platform, and awaken the natural emotion of the soul. So we require to cleanse the mirror of the heart, it is said, covered by so much dust. Then fourth investment, we have about 5, so we're almost there, is in Tan Nishtas. Nishta means fix, but fixing our faith. So everyone has faith. Otherwise, we would not leave our houses if we didn't have faith that the sky won't just be falling down on us, or the car will explode, or whatever. The ground won't cave in and we'll fall in. We have faith that our car is outside. You live in places where cars are parked in the street sometimes. I don't know, in Seattle, I think it's the same. In South Africa, you can't just leave your car parking on the streets overnight. So that means we don't have faith in the security of our car in the streets. So we don't park the car overnight outside. It takes a lot of faith to do that you find it in the morning. So faith is there. You'll eat the food they give you at the restaurant because your faith, you don't think that they've poisoned it. So you trust strangers to give you food that won't kill you. But somehow or the other, we have evolved a mistrust in the creator. Hell, there's no creator. Just see how far our mistrust has been, that we may not even consider that there's a creator. Hey, whatever we've been exposed to, if someone is open for examining their convictions, then there's always possibility for growth. So whatever one's convictions are, I think to invest in challenging those and putting on board understandings that are different from what we've maintained in the past, that will always help us grow. So if we take a leap of faith that there is a reality beyond this body, that there is a spiritual dimension to life, and that there may be well-wishers, whether it's angels or fairies or liberated souls who live in the spiritual world, then we apply ourselves daily in that direction. We gain a confidence to apply the spiritual advice that we're given. So if you are driving on the freeway and you're not sure which exit to take, and you guess, you may take one or the other, but you will not have your foot on the gas because you're unsure if you're headed in the wrong direction or not. So when we have faith that we're going in the right direction, then we can accelerate. So when we hear from the saintly persons, the wisdom texts in Gita we hear from Krishna, then naturally, like any relationship, when we interact with someone, we hear from someone, we begin to understand their take on things, their angle on things. We have to develop some faith in them because we see what you told me last week about this situation. Oh, that was true, actually. That advice you gave me the other day, I followed it. It worked for me. In this way, then we are able to just take in all that advice and we begin to trust that, yes, I'm a well-wisher. Krishna says in that Bhagavad Gita, Suridam Savabhutanam. He says, I'm this friend, heartfelt friend of every living being. He's not that type of friend that's there only for a good time, not for a long time. He's there eternally with us in the heart. That's the super soul. So when we get to trust that onboard friend, then we tune in to what people may understand as intuition, or that voice of reason. Now, how many times have we been given good counsel by this non-aggressive, soft-spoken voice in the heart? Or don't do this, or remember to take that, and then the mind comes in and says, no, I'll do this. And then later on, we realize that we had been guided internally, but we did not take that advice. So when we invest in cleansing the mind and bringing out our spiritual emotions, then we begin to trust that experience. We begin to have faith in our inner guide, faith in our spiritual mentors. And lastly is Tatparanaha, or having an ultimate goal of our lives. So we said beginning with the end in mind, and we mentioned one type of ending, which is, according to your consciousness, glorious or just the scariest thing out there. We don't even want to think about death. Oh my God, death. However, it can be also a situation that we're prepared for, that we understand it's a transition. And if we know it's a transition to a better destination, whether we get our spiritual body, we're going to spend time with these types of beings on this type of planet, with this and that goes on, then hey, bring it on. At that time when the body is failing us, maybe disease has taken over, we won't be devastated to give it up. But in fact, we'll be ready to leave this one behind and to move on. So this ultimate goal of life has been discussed as prema pumatamahan, that love, and not just any kind of love, divine love, is the ultimate goal of our existence. And when we invest in developing that type of love, in that particular verse 517, the word used there is in relation to liberation, because it said 4 goals of human life are there. One is sense enjoyment, which is called as karma. The next is economic development, artha. And then the next is religiosity, dharma. And then the fourth and ultimate is liberation, or moksha. So this concept that ultimately we want to get
I'm the
out.
new motherfucking George Jefferson, nigga. Fuck you, Joe. I'm the new motherfucking George.
That ultimately we want to get out of the material confinements, whether of consciousness or just physically the universe, moksha, liberation. So when we focus our attention on the spiritual practices, on our well wishes, then we resolve the inner conflicts and we become joyful. And we connect to that love, that prema. So yes, let us become lovers of life, lovers of our fellow men, fellow living beings, and actually practice the deepest self-love, giving ourselves a chance to meet our end blissfully. And then we realize there is no end to life. It's just one page of the book of our eternal existence. Okay, these are just thoughts that I wanted to share. I don't think it would be nice to hear from you, your thoughts, and take any questions if they are. And
First of all, I apologize for that disturbance. Just the nature of Meetup is that people are able to join the group and then access our sessions. So I think once or twice before we've had issues like this where someone just joins in the middle of the meeting and they look like a real person, but they're just bots just causing disturbances in society, unfortunately. So
yeah, there's a taste in just being a hooligan. You know? It's like rebel with no cause. It's like, haha.
I don't know what people get out of it, but one time we had like these two teenage girls join and like they joined on two separate accounts and they're real people, but they would just turn their cameras on and off and chuckle and like initially like it looked like they were actually there to attend, but then we realized that they're just making a joke, which I don't know what was funny, but yeah.
Yeah, it was fun to me. It's just like in the middle, it's like Hare Krishna. Mm.
There was a point I liked that I wanted to share, which really struck me. So you mentioned that it's we're affected most by our feelings and we tend to trust them more than logic or wisdom. And then you said that because of that, we move our lives in a way in which what feels good in the moment, and how sometimes spiritual practice or something that's more meaningful may not feel good in the moment, but it can be something that can benefit us gradually in time as we put effort into it. And I really liked hearing that. It was almost calming and validating to hear that sometimes we do things in the moment to feel emotionally good, or oh, this feels really good, or let me do this right now, and we neglect everything else. So thank you for saying that, and it was kind of like a wake-up call.
Thank you, thank you. Yes. Feelings.
Also, I just put in the Zoom chat a AI generated summary of the key points that Savya had brought up. So hopefully that's also a nice summary. I saw some of you taking notes. So
There's a Zoom AI that can do that. Nice.
Oh, and I have a question. I was curious about your like spiritual calling. Usually when we see monks, they're like, way older, and I think you're pretty young. So then, I could feel when you were talking about, for this like ultimate love and this sacred relationship with God, and and I was curious to ask how was for you, and I don't know how old you were, like when you decide to go on this path, and what motivates you every day. If you could share a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. I got involved in '02. That's when I actually moved into a monastery. But I would say my journey started high school, so like maybe 14, 15, just being curious about how the world works the way it is, especially how we're being educated. I always felt that it was some systematized way. I thought it was too long. Why are we in school for so many years? And so I didn't like that, because naturally, as a kid, we just want to play and be happy. But then all of a sudden, there's this system of life, how we should go. And so that led me to, casual herbal excursions with friends. And with that, you slow yourself down a little bit, question more. Then it was a matter of understanding what's the leadership of the world, who's running the world. And then you could understand that those who were deciding how our lives evolve weren't really looking at it for our welfare. It's profit driven. And so because of that profit, then the systems of education or indoctrination that are laid out, and how a human being from birth to death will be a give profit or turn the wheels of the economy. And I didn't want to be a cog in the machine. So I thought that there must be wisdom about what's really the highest value of living. They were selling us value to survival. Okay, get all these external things and survive. But I was thinking, these things have survival value, yes, but what's the value in being alive? And that led me to many experiences in terms of different wisdom cultures. But ultimately, when I met this Bhakti Yoga or the Vedas, I found it most comprehensive, and it included every other thing that I'd researched. And especially for me, it gave me a daily practice, which hit the spot every day. It was fascinating to me, one mantra. So I thought, let me make my life an experiment. Let me experiment on this spiritual technology and try to share it with others. So when I was 20, I joined the ashram. Now my body is 43 years old. So not so young. And then before that, all this love and whatever I spoke of, I experienced some dating before, and I could tell that both parties were just not qualified or educated enough about love. And so we disappoint each other because we don't have the capacity, the training to understand this emotion, which is actually a spiritual phenomenon. Love is actually spiritual. But it just comes through that emotion is so raw and so powerful, but we don't know how to protect it and how to deepen it by sacrifice. It's a selfless platform. So then now I think more and more I'm understanding what love is, and I try to share informations that I've gathered to inspire people to actually go for it, go for love. Thank you, Carolina. Is that like Hispanic Carolina or Carolina? How would you say?
I'm Brazilian, so Carolina.
Okay. Thank you. Brazilian, no,
Thank
samba.
you for sharing.
Samba.
Maybe we'll have your next talk on your journey, because it's quite fascinating, because the point you brought up about like how the world seems like mechanics, like I was recently like researching like world mechanics, like what are laws that make the world work. And there was one point I came across, which is kind of how the juxtaposition of happiness and sadness, like we think that, oh, we want pure happiness, but if sadness or if calamity was not present, happiness as an emotion wouldn't even exist. It's like a construct that is necessary for the world to operate. So I found that point really interesting that you brought up, of how like there's like world mechanics almost. And when you start to question and go into it, you start to pull out these different nuances of how the world works.
Yes.
Any other? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just the temptation to say something, but I want to hear from you.
Oh, I was just going to ask if anybody else has any questions, comments, realizations that they'd want to share.
Yeah, I have a question. So I want to ask him, like in a world that we live in right now, everybody wants everything from their own pleasure, for their own emotion in that moment. What is the things that we can do so we can kind of disconnect about, because everybody is chasing the pleasure every moment. Oh, I don't want to do this because it's not good. I don't like it to do that. You know, I understand about the spiritual connection with the supreme force, but how little things that we can just like push ourselves to make us remember what is the most important.
Yes, great question, Lillian. So, as you've highlighted, the trust is a bit of a selfish self-absorption culture, and a pleasure-seeking, self-gratification culture. So these are based on a deeper reality that we are pleasure-seeking beings. So to look for pleasure is natural to us. That's what the soul is designed for. It's just the platform that we're looking for it on is very temporary, and it's short-lived, and whatever we call happiness or pleasure is embedded with a suffering. The other side of it is a suffering. So we want to deal with that self-absorption in the proper way. So service, to be a bit learning selflessness or sacrificing one's time, resources to help others or to benefit others or to contribute to a cause that's not directly linked to my individual happiness. So yeah, we teach people even how to eat in a way where you are performing service. You can be part of some charitable work in your local area. Even this giving time to lend your ear to hear such discourse is the right type of selfishness. You're not focusing on the highest self by hearing. But the mind may be saying, like, there's something on TV I could be watching. I could be catching up on this and that. There's a friend you could be chatting with, but you're sacrificing your time to hear. So this giving some energy, some time, some resources for something other than my immediate sense engagement. Yeah. So primary thing that I do every day is just now after this call, actually the Zoom will start now. We've got like 2.5 hours where I'm there doing my chanting. I have some beads and I do mantra meditation. And then individuals also can log in as it suits them in that 2.5 hours to join in to do some chanting. So we're starting off the day with hearing the mantra, absorbing our mind, meditating on being instruments of grace in the world instead of just going out to grab more and more for me and mine. So I'd say find out something, some activity you can get involved in. Thank you, Lilian.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining this Enlivening Wisdom Wednesday. And thank you so much, Savya, for joining at quite an early hour, first thing in the morning, associating and sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you so much to all of our attendees for contributing to the discussion as well. It just makes it so much more engaging for everybody, and I know also the speaker. We'll be back next week with another Wisdom Wednesday talk. It's a great opportunity to disassociate and reassociate with a spiritual community that we are very, very grateful for. Thank you so much, everybody. See you next week, and thank you, Savya.
Thank you.